I'm Blair with Wisecraft Handmade, and it's Quilting and Answer Thursday. Each week I share a video tip right here to help us all be better quilters, and today I'm sharing my TSA compliant travel sewing kit. Now, I realize that sharing tips for a travel kit right now is ironic, given that many of us are looking hard at upcoming travel plans. But I just got back from teaching workshops on the East Coast, and I was reminded several times during the trip how much I love my travel kit, especially on long flights. So I also realized that this kit will work for car, train, bus travel, or really any situation you find yourself away from your sewing supplies and wanting to keep your hands busy. So I thought I would share what I have in mind, and maybe while we're all cooped up at home, you can make your own version of this easy kit. Now keep in mind that all of the items I currently have in my kit are TSA compliant because I was going to be on an airplane. If you're not planning to travel by air, you can include things like real scissors and seam rippers instead of the substitutions that I've made. I tend to have some sort of hand sewing project going on almost all the time, like sashiko embroidery, English paper piecing, or applique, things like that. And these kind of projects are great for travel because they're usually small, so they're easy to carry. And right now I happen to be working on an applique project from this Yoko Sato applique book, and here's the book, and here is my project. So it's all needle turn applique, lots of super small little pieces, almost like fabric crumbs. So it's the perfect project to carry onto an airplane, but the pieces are so small that they can actually get lost on my lap, fall, and disappear. So that was when I had to consider all of that when I was packing up my little bag. So I have this plastic bin and it has a magnetic bottom on the inside. It's from Art Bin. I'll provide a link below. And I used this a few years ago and recently pulled it out again because it's so great. But you could certainly also do a DIY version of this using any sort of plastic container with a lid and those printable magnetic sheets that you can run through a home printer. I'll provide a link to what I'm talking about below for those. But you would just cut the magnetic sheet to size and hot glue it down to the inside bottom of your container. Now the magnetic strength isn't super strong, but it's just strong enough to keep needles and pins from dropping and any of my other tools from rolling around and falling off of my lap. So inside of this, as you can see, I've pre-cut some applique pieces. These are super small, as you can see. Here's one here. So I've cut out the fabric. I've pinned the template to the fabric piece so that I don't forget what it is. And then I keep all of these stacked in order in my little bin so I can just take one out when I need it. And I can also use these pins as applique pins to hold my little tiny piece down onto my base fabric. There's really no pre-pinning or glue basting for this type of tiny little applique work. Now some of these require little curved edges. Maybe this isn't the best example, but some of them require curved edges, and for that I have these cute little travel scissors, and I'll put a link to these below as well. They have a little case that covers the blade, and work just fine to cut into the edges wherever I need to notch my fabric. So those go in there. For sewing, what I do is I take out the dental floss reel inside a container of dental floss, and then I fill it with, I'll show you what I have in here. So I fill it with, pop this out, and I fill it with a bobbin of neutral thread, put it in the case, and actually I usually tend to also stick a little piece of batting in there just to keep it from knocking around, and then I thread it back onto the top part, which I snap back into place, and then I can also use this to pull out my thread and also cut the ends. And then the other thing that I do, which is just a lifesaver, is I have about 8 of my needle turn applique needles here pre-threaded. So this is a trick I learned recently, and it is a lifesaver. So to do that, I pull a length of thread out, I thread all of my needles onto the thread, hoping that you can see that. Then as I use one, I'll pull it off of the stack. And then I just pull a length of thread and pull it off and knot it, and then when I'm ready for the next one, it's already all threaded. And this is a lifesaver. I just can't see very well at all on planes, and having a whole stack of pre-threaded needles is really a lifesaver. So I stick all the needles here on this piece of scrap wool, and I just put it right here inside of my kit. I also, for needle turn applique, I also use these tweezers. These are applique tweezers. They have a little tip, a little rubber tip covering the ends. But they're great because what they do is just help you pick up everything and place it. So good to have. These aren't vital, but they're really nice to have. So these go in my kit. And then I also use one of these. It's called, I believe this is an eyebrow trimmer. It has a little trimmer here on the end, if you can see that. And I use these to, if I need to remove any thread, then what I would do is go underneath, go in between the piece and the base, and just lightly, I would take the cap off and then I would just lightly rub, and it cuts the thread. It's great. So it'll undo your stitches. So I put that in there as well. If you do not have any scissors, I've also used nail clippers in a pinch. Those work really well too. I'll often also carry a friction pin just because it's nice to have. If my marks are not too dark to begin with, then sometimes it's nice to remark. So I'll put all of this in my bin, and then I will take my base cloth. I will put it in the book. Any of you guys want to see, here's the project that I'm working on. So I will put all this in the book. I put this in my backpack, but then I have everything here together to put in my bag to take with me. So let me know in the comments if you travel with sewing and maybe have some TSA compliant tips you can share with us. As always, find more tips, patterns, tools, and tutorials on my website, wisecrafthandmade.com, and I will see you here next week.